Gentlemen, what we do in life echoes in eternity.
Oh, he's fucking obsessed with Gladiator.
Man, it's a great fucking film. Strength and honor.
Scotch and soda. As long as you're on the way to the bar.
So Russell Crowe, I mean, he's trapped, right? They're gonna sever off his head, and he's telling him how to do it?
And then he yanks a sword from that dude. That was so fat. What about when the guy gets hit with that spike thing and chunks of his head go flying?
Enough already.
It's Britney, bitch.
And the Iraq, everywhere, like, such as.
I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Out, Charlie! Out!
Our next door neighbors are foreign countries.
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Remember Shuffle. My name is Ben. With me as always is my co-host Giordano.
Ben, there are rich Lannistai and there are poor Lannistai. Then there's 50 cubits of crap, and then there's our ludus. We are an organ donor for the rich editores. Our goal shouldn't be to buy gladiators. Our goal should be to buy plebeian jeers.
Jeers or cheers?
Cheers. We don't have the denarii for a secutor, okay? We're not selling togas here. What if I told you Retiarius fighters lost 100% of their fights, but won more favor than any other gladiator? We used analytics to pick our gladiators. It's a new method I've developed called counting.
E.
His acclaim per Sestari ratio is off the charts. That's what I like about him.
Welcome to our episode on Gladiator. If you were expecting part 6 of our series on the global financial crisis, fear not, it's coming. Sometimes these episodes take a little bit more time, a little bit more research, and we don't want to leave you hanging. So here's Gladiator.
It's really hard reading about the Eurozone crisis.
Oh, it's so fucking boring, dude.
There's all sorts of currency concepts involved. It's not an easy read.
I keep finding myself reading lines like, Greece owed so many billions of euros. I just want to be like, to who? National debt is dumb. But yes, we are turning to Gladiator. Why are we doing this, Giordano?
It won Best Picture. I feel like at some point we'll probably get to all of them. First of all, it's a good movie. It's a fun to watch movie. Obviously it's kind of a sports movie and a revenge film, but most of the plot occupies itself with this intrigue over trying to get the Roman Empire to go back to the Roman Republic. And I was talking to my dad about this movie recently, and he was like, oh yeah, that movie was interesting. It was interesting the way that Romans wanted to go back to the Republic like that. And Ben has pointed out to me before that this was not ever a concern, right?
Nope.
And so I think the fact that we made, in the year 2000, the plot of our Best Picture winner about gladiators about wanting to fix their political system to be a more liberal one, I think says a lot about the era in which this movie came out, right? Because if this concern wasn't actually part of Roman society back then that means it's purely for the audience in 2000. And so it speaks mostly to the type of art that we're making and the type of art that we wanted to see about democracy. It is really sort of our end of history insert into a Sword and Sandals movie, right? And if I can walk you through popular Sword and Sandals movies over time, right? You got Ben-Hur and Quo Vadis in the 1950s, right? Both of which are about Christian faith, essentially, right? At a time when Americans are juxtaposing themselves with atheism in the USSR. And Quo Vadis is also about a corrupt emperor, but only in the sense that he's persecuting Christians, right?
Yes.
Unlike this movie.
They remade Ben-Hur a few years back. I'm surprised they didn't call it Ben-Them. Am I right?
Okay. And then Spartacus is made in the 1960s. The author was someone who was persecuted by the House on un-American activities. Right. And so it has a lot of that baked into it. It opens with a nod where Rome is described as a republic and, quote, fatally stricken with a disease called human slavery.
Yeah, it's a film about a slave revolt. And I would just say, push up nerd glasses. The Spartacus slaves were not abolitionists. They didn't want to free other slaves. They wanted to be free themselves. The ancient world never actually produced an abolitionist movement. no matter what kind of radical new religion or philosophy was produced, nobody ever said, like, this is a moral wrong that we should do away with. I think the closest they got is like, this is a moral wrong, but it is a necessary evil.
But yeah, I mean, it's about civil rights, right? And it's coming out in the 1960s and about racism. I think there's like some racial mixing in the gladiatorial school going on in that movie. Kingdom of Heaven, we've mentioned on this pod before about like a confusing quagmire of a war in the Middle East. 300 about sort of like aughts. East versus West fascism. Mm-hmm. And so now you have this like pre 9/11 Sword and Sandal movie, and it's about liberalism, which is so funny.
Yeah.
Like classical liberalism.
And I think it speaks really well to 90s era liberalism because we see the empire reach its zenith, both the American and the Roman Empire. The Romans are fighting far off on the frontier in Germany when we check in with them. But it's specifically in the Roman instance, in a lot of ways, about a cultural decline. A society that has expended all of this blood and treasure and man hours to create the best blood sport entertainment in the world. International networks of slaving to get the exotic animals and the people from all over for the sake of blood sport. Roman military might, unquestioned in this movie, just like American military might was in the end of history unipolar moment. And I think some of this obsession with cultural decline is wrapped up in that late 90s, early 2000s. Our politics has become a politics of scandal, Monica Lewinsky, impeachment, etc. That's like their Commodus. I know I'm kind of stretching it a little bit here, but we've mentioned a lot on this pod about postmodernism of the 90s. Anything cynical or snarky or ironic or irreverent. And this movie is not postmodern. And that's not just because it's a Sword and Sandals movie. It's not postmodern in the sense that it is earnest to a fucking fault. In many ways, this is an anti-postmodern 90s reaction film. And I think that's like the kind of decline that's sort of envisioned. And of course, like Giordano said, the like stupid imagined, we gotta bring the Republic back, which nobody ever mentioned for real or thought about. And yeah, why this matters, why this particular film matters. Think about your classic 90s Sword and Sandals movies. Name me some, Giordano. There's so many, they're so famous. That's the bit. You can't. If I ask you to think of a 2000 Sword and Sandal movie, you might say Troy or Alexander or King Arthur or Kingdom of Heaven or 300 or a bunch of other ones that are like the B and C and D list here that you probably haven't seen or heard of, like Spartacus, Blood and Sand on the Stars with a Z network, or The Eagle, or even Pompeii in 2014. This film was so successful that it kick-started that Sword and Sandals renaissance. So that's why we're talking about it. Bibliography. We read a book by this dude named Harry Sidebottom.
Insane British name, Harry Sidebottom. Good God. That truly English gay porno actor's name.
Yes, they're developing new positions over there. Harry Sidebottom wrote a book on gladiators that came out just last year called Those About to Die, which I really dug, but I think you kind of already need to know a lot about classics to really appreciate it. Giordano, you were so on it.
I thought it was interesting enough.
I also read one of his other books called The Mad Emperor for some of the other stuff here. Before we turn to the film, I want to give you a little bit of background on gladiators. And this might run a little long, but it's only going to run long because gladiators in history are far more interesting than Gladiator, the 2000 film. So cut me a little slack, spend a lot of my life dealing with this classic stuff, come in with an open mind. Okay, so we're going to walk you through this conflict between the emperor and the Senate, whoever the emperor is. Because Commodus, the Emperor Commodus, is the start of this precipitous decline in the Roman Empire. When I took my Roman history courses back in the day, they periodized the upper level courses into 3 chunks. You got Roman history, Republic, which went from the earliest shit that we have down to the death of Julius Caesar. Then you had Roman history, High Empire, from the reign of Augustus down to Marcus Aurelius. This is your Pax Romana. Things are ticking along. Got some good emperors in there, got some bad emperors in there, got some civil wars in there, got the eruption of Pompeii in there. Most of the famous buildings come from this period. Then you get Roman history, later empire, which actually started with Commodus. So this film is set at the starting gun for the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. And it gets almost everything wrong about Roman politics entirely. I have a section for a pedant's corner later. This is the pre-pedant's corner. But the Roman Republic was basically an oligarchy, not a democracy. People voted in tribes in descending order from richest to poorest in their democratic assemblies, and they stopped voting when a majority was hit. Like, for just one of the many anti-democratic aspects of the Roman Constitution. There's no evidence that Marcus Aurelius, or any other emperor for that matter, had any notion of restoring the Republic, because officially it never died. The fiction that they did is like, I'm just the first citizen. I'm just the first citizen among equals. The Senate still existed.
That's what the emperor is saying.
That's what the emperor is saying, yeah. The magistrates still existed. They still had elections that were just like, the candidates had to be handpicked or rubber stamped by the emperor. There were some things that were banned, but it was some minor tinkering around the edges.
I guess that's the key part of ending the Republic, is you don't say the Republic's ending. You keep it all around as like window dressing.
Exactly, yes. And basically the Roman Empire was a military dictatorship because the emperor was the commander-in-chief of all the legions. We see this in the film, where Marcus Aurelius is out there on the frontier and then Commodus joins him. So here's how this weird-ass state worked. Emperor's authority rested on 4 basic pillars or constituencies that he had to please. If too many of these guys get pissed off, you get overthrown. These are the folks who mattered to keep things going. You have the Senate. The emperor needs the Senate, who are the elite of society, rich, propertied, aristocratic men. He needs them to govern the provinces because Rome never developed an independent bureaucracy where you could just hire whoever to be a governor.
Interesting. He goes out and sort of administers it independently for a fixed fee or something, like a franchise.
Yeah, it's the franchise of empire. You get to be governor, you get to be nice and corrupt and do some graft off the top. And then you would actually hire private tax collectors to do your tax collecting for you. That's why they were so hated in like the New Testament or whatever. It's like why the Judeans hated the tax collectors so much, because they were frequently local collaborators. The Senate would be all the generals for the emperor's many armies, because the emperor is just one guy. The Senate is still voting the titles and powers of the emperor to give him a veneer of legitimacy, and they're going to become the consuls and the aediles and the quaestors and all these magistrates, just like it was during the Republic, but the emperor is choosing the candidate. So what these rich old men want from an emperor, they want respect, dignitas. They want freedom of speech and freedom from condemnation and detention, libertas. That's the kind of freedom that they want. Let us at least say the things we want to say. They want the emperor to be first among equals, and they want this fiction of power, with the emperor helping them maintain the prestige of the body. They still had certain rights, like a feudal aristocracy, and they wanted those respected. They want the emperor to attend all their meetings. They want him to act correct and dignified when he does. They want free access to the emperor. They want the emperor to spend a majority of time with them, and they want the emperor to take advice only from them. And what they don't want is to be treated with contempt. They don't want the emperor getting too close to the common people or the common soldiers. They definitely don't want him ignoring them. It's about respect, Giordano, at the end of the day. These are Italians here.
What were the senators in charge of in the Republic? Just electing the consuls, or like making laws, or what?
So they were mostly an advisory body, but they also were in charge of doling out the money.
Okay, and then in the Empire period, it sounds like they'll still consult in theory, but they just wouldn't be doling out the money.
That's the thing about the Senate, is that it didn't actually officially have all that much power. They had really limited authority. They couldn't even introduce laws to be passed in the assemblies. Only the magistrates could pass laws. But it was a body that was made up of Rome's richest guys and most experienced guys. Because after you were elected consul, once you were an ex-magistrate, you could join the ranks of the Senate. It was the only way the body could be replenished. It had a lot of influence, even if it didn't have a lot of formal power, which is part of what the movie gets so fucking wrong, where it's like the Senate is elected and represents the people, because that sounds like America, but it was not that really at all. Okay, the next constituency, which we also see in the film, is the army. This is the most important one, because armies can declare emperors and they can depose emperors and they can depose pretenders and successors. And by the time of the empire, Rome's army is this fully professionalized force and is more or less an entirely independent institution tied to the emperor. Once upon a time, Rome's army was made up of volunteers. No longer. They lived apart from civilian society. They lived under different laws where they had extremely harsh discipline that they were subjected to, but they were also compensated with social benefits. There are all kinds of stories in Roman literature of some random soldier just roughing up a civilian and getting away with it because they can. They even dressed and walked differently than a civilian. And so civilians feared soldiers, but soldiers fucking despised civilians. We are very, very far from the golden age of the Republic. And what the army wants from an emperor is money. The soldiers want to get paid. And by the late empire in that period of decline, there are rich guys who are just buying their way to the emperorship by bribing the right soldiers. And they want an emperor who is a commander-in-chief, not just in name, but is one of them. They want a fellow soldier, a commilito in Latin. They want a soldier who's eating our rations and wearing our uniform and talking like a soldier. They want an emperor who's one of the boys, you know? And also, like the senators, they want attention and respect.
Everybody wants attention.
Yes.
And then opposite wants, like the Senate, they want the emperor to be respectable. And the soldiers want the emperor to eat rations.
Yes. You can see how it's a delicate balancing act. And you can see why so many of them were deposed. The third constituency is one that we don't really see in the film, but they are the most interesting. The Familia Caesaris. This is the emperor's family, staff, and counselors. This is your palace intrigue shit, right? They're the most fun. It's all of the emperor's slaves, and importantly, it's the freedmen, the former slaves of his household. The emperor would have these highly educated, usually Greek slaves that he would free, and that's how you knew you could trust these guys a lot. Because, you know, you're responsible for their freedom. You're responsible for advancing them to this exciting position. And it really is the West Wing staff of an emperor, including, this is a crazy-ass list, okay? You ready for this? Doctors, masseuses, astrologers, cooks, wine stewards, waiters, gardeners, jewelers, a range of wardrobe masters for different types of clothing. One guy for your private clothes, one guy for military, legal, triumphal, hunting, kingly and Greek, and so on. You had a special bureaucrat functionary for your studies, and you basically had a sex guy, a procurator voluptatum. That's Latin for the manager of pleasures, or the overseer of the pleasures. You had a functionary bureaucrat for finances, for correspondence, for embassies, for legal affairs, a chief of staff for appointments, and one who even ran the bedchamber.
I would love to see like the Roman West Wing with Toby speaking to the overseer of pleasures and the wine steward and the astrologer. Mr. President, the astrologer says the omens are bad this year. Or Mr. Caesar, sir.
Imperator, the astrologer says the omens are bad, but I do have this Thracian maiden for you. Yeah, so the senatorial elite generally hated all these guys because these people had so much power and they were so close to the emperor, and these guys were generally not chosen from the aristocracy. These aristocrats are scheming. They might want to be an emperor. So instead you choose these like foreigners and former slaves. And they're also fucking wealthy. The largest known private fortune in the ancient world, 400 million sesterces. I mean, what the fuck does that mean? I don't know. I don't know the ancient conversion. It's the property qualification for 2/3 of all members of the Senate was amassed by one guy, the correspondence manager, Narcissus, of the Emperor Claudius.
What was he up to?
Graft, probably. These guys were all corrupt as fuck, dude. The people who hold up Rome as a model of equality before the law are fucking laughable. Like, they had chattel slavery. They want what all the other groups wanted: money, power, emperor to themselves. If the Senate wants an emperor that's first among equals, a princeps civilis, civilian prince, the familia of the emperor, they want an emperor who is as apart and above from the rest of the elites as possible. Okay, our last constituency, and the funnest one, and one that we see in the film, the urban plebs of the city of Rome. Remember that Rome was a city of 1 million people with no police force. And these urban plebs could and often did riot. Hence, the bread and circuses.
Your average guy, your average Joe the pleb.
Joe the Plumbo. Plumber comes from the Latin word plumbus, meaning lead.
Okay.
They have to be placated. The historical Commodus had this member of his staff named Cleander, who was really, really unpopular. And the urban plebs was so pissed that Commodus had to have him killed and put Cleander's head on a pike just to placate the plebs. They're probably the least important of these four constituencies because the plebs never actually successfully overthrew an emperor on their own, but they could destabilize regimes enough that another constituency could come in and overthrow the emperor. And these guys also had certain privileges that were grounded in history that had to be respected because the Romans had this one democratic element of their constitution. Laws could be passed by voting them through popular assemblies, and the executive branch, all those offices, had to be elected by the people as well. And so what the plebs want from an emperor, they want the damn bread and circuses, right? Give me the shows. Give me the gifts.
Noam Chomsky said the same thing about sports in America, apparently, that they're used to keep public disaffection down.
It fucking works, dude.
Okay, wait. So during the Republic to Empire transition, were the offices and political power of the plebs unchanged as well?
They are curtailed. In the Republic, you had a special office called the Tribune of the Plebs, this elected office that's there just to represent the plebs, which was very, very powerful. And over the centuries of the Republic, their power ebbs and flows. And then by the time of the Principate Empire, that is one of the offices that is very much curtailed. There were also specific sessions of public debate that could get quite rowdy. These were kind of done away with. Some of the more like public discourse around the laws was curtailed in the transition from Republic to Empire. But they were still voting. Just, I don't know, remember this for reasons in 2026. Just vote, baby.
What did the plebs want from an emperor? Who's their ideal emperor? What does he do? What's he like?
I mean, it's an emperor that you might want to say, I just want to have a wine with him in a nice little taberna. They loved Claudius bantering them. You know, Claudius at the games called them my lords. You know, you guys are the lords today.
They just want a guy who goes out to the Latifunda State Fair and eats the garum.
They want an emperor who's a man of the people. The trait that they appreciate in an emperor is called levitas, levity, which is quite literally the opposite of the stern dignitas that the Senate wants, dignity. They love all these wacky stories in our sources about emperors cross-dressing as poor people and like sneaking out to hang out with the urban poor. They love that shit. It's like when
Bill Clinton jogs through the McDonald's. You know?
Yes. They love when the emperor humiliates the upper classes. Like there are these stories of these bad emperors like Caligula forcing aristocratic people to fight in the arena. The plebs eat that shit up.
One of like the criminal elements of this movie, honestly, is that they conflate both of these groups, like the Senate and the people, being like, yeah, like their interests are aligned and they're basically the same thing. When, like, as you've told me, often the interests of the Senate and the interests of the people are in direct opposition to each other. Yes. And in fact, they don't like it when either of them advances their own causes. And like often the emperor might have been supporting the people at the expense of the Senate.
Yes, quite often. The emperor would be better for your average Joe citizen than he would be for your senatorial elite.
For your landowning aristocracy? No way. The landlord class?
Exactly, Giordano. Our film flattens all that cool shit out. I'll talk more about this later in our themes, but the way that the army is portrayed as this highly patriotic institution who are fighting for Rome in a very particular way is fucking fantasy.
The idea of Rome.
Yeah, the idea of Rome. Excuse me. Yes. Okay, second thing for historical context, let's talk a little bit about gladiators because they're cool and they're fun and they're interesting. They're a uniquely Roman institution, which is interesting given how much of Roman culture is cribbed from other people's, especially the Greeks.
This part seems weird because, like, one, the idea of making two people fight for entertainment doesn't seem all that novel.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it is strange that it is not more universal in a way. Like the Joker saying, we're having tryouts or whatever. But I did read that, yeah, they're unsure if it's an Etruscan practice or a practice from Campania. I think the best bet is that we used to do human sacrifices a lot of times, especially around funerals. And so they know that like the earliest gladiator games were tied to funerals. Like you would be like, oh, my dad's dead. I'm going to honor his memory by throwing a 25 gladiator match to honor him. And it's like, well, instead of doing a human sacrifice, in some ways, this is like slightly maybe more humane in the sense that like one of them might live. Yep. But that's kind of like the natural evolution that I had heard had happened.
Yeah, the human sacrifice bit is like highly contested. That is what the ancient Christians who hated the games accused the pagan Romans of doing, changing it from human sacrifice. And like, I'm being a little simplistic. I guess like the Gauls had some kind of tradition of making guys fight for entertainment. It's probably not a totally unique invention to the Romans, but nobody went as hard with it as the Romans did.
There are Roman colosseums like all over the former empire today, right? It's like one of the main marks that your country used to be part of the Roman Empire. Is like there's probably still like a colosseum somewhere.
They exported those amphitheaters. Doesn't matter in the West, in the Greek East. The Greeks didn't do it, but then they took to it.
3 continents.
Yeah. So there's 4 basic ways for you to find yourself on the sands fighting for your life. How do you become a gladiator? Number 1, the most common, a foreign captive of Rome's overseas wars. History heads may remember Spartacus was from Thrace, and the exoticism of the fighters probably makes the shows more enticing for a Roman audience, right? This reinforces empire. Look at all the lands we control.
Yeah, I got the sense that a lot of it was different gladiator types. Like there are stock characters in the arena. And so you have like the Thracian, you know, like I don't know if the Bactrian was actually one, but it's reinforcing this idea that we conquered these people. And so now they're like a figurine in our little play death matches here.
Yeah. There was a figure called the Gaul that existed during the Republic. And then Gaul became so Romanized that the figure of the Gaul drops off from the sources.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the most common way. You get conquered by the Romans, you find yourself in the arena. Number 2, you could be a criminal convicted of particularly egregious crimes like sacrilege, arson, murder, adulterers, male prostitutes, burglars, cutpurses, and kidnappers could all be sentenced to become slave gladiators. This was better than a death sentence, beheading for elites, crucifixion for slaves, because you at least had a chance of surviving, right? A slave, you could be a regular non-gladiator style slave, and your master could just sell you to a gladiator school. And some slaves would run away to try and sell themselves to a ludus. A ludus is a gladiator school, rather than stay with their masters. And then the last source, which I think is the weirdest but the most interesting, are free men who volunteered. Why do this? And nobody is certain. Some ancient sources say it's because free people fell on hard times, so it's their own fault. You know, these guys are just moralizing prudes. It's like, yeah, you drank and you whored, and now you're broke, and you're selling your body to be in the arena. But some people might have done it for a pursuit of celebrity, for an addiction of the adrenaline rush of extreme risk-taking. They live in a society that glamorized violence, you know, martial valor, fighting in war. But now there's no more wars. You're living in the Pax Romana. Maybe you want to fight in the arena.
They never took up Bushido arts, eh?
They never wrote the samurai poems, I guess.
There was a story I came across of, like 2 friends. This is from the classical world, where it's like 2 friends who were traveling and then like were robbed, and so they didn't have any money. And so one of them had to volunteer to be a gladiator and win enough money so they could make it home.
Yeah, that's from one of the novelists, though. You got to put an asterisk. But it is something that, it is a story that people told from the time. And yeah, you might end up wealthy because this was so popular that there was a lot of money that changed hands when putting on a gladiatorial show. You may have immediately immolated your social status, but you did it for that sweet, sweet cash money. Now, here's where is like some true pedant's corner shit. In reality, no one knows for sure what the risk of death was in the arena, but it was probably 1 in 8, give or take. That's like a middle of the pack estimate. Between the 2 extremes is that your risk of dying in a gladiatorial match was 1 in 8 because you fought until one guy submitted and then the crowd got to cheer or boo, and then the giver of the games gets to decide whether or not you live or die. So even if you lose, if you are showy enough, if you are brave enough, if you put on a good enough show, if you win over the crowd, you could lose a fight and still survive. 1 in 8.
That's very often, like way more often than is ever present in a movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jordana, what do you think the death rate is in the film Gladiator from 2000?
99%.
An individual gladiator probably fought just once or twice a year, and their career might not extend more than 3 years.
Once or twice a year is crazy. I mean, I guess if you get injured, it's probably going to be like a month or two to come back. But it's still like as long as we wait to do a UFC fight now.
Yeah, it's a combat sport. Some more on the historical gladiators. They were fat and deformed and ugly and sex symbols. So gladiators got fat on carbs. Their diet was this stew of barley and beans, and then they just ate more of it than your average Joe. Like, quite literally, feed them the slop. Feed them the beans and barley slop.
They're bean maxing. They're bean maximusing.
Yeah. So, like, soldiers got wheat and less than a gladiator. Gladiators got barley, more calorically dense, and they got more of it. They also drank this weird mix of ash dissolved in watered down wine because they thought it would strengthen their bones, which is crazy because apparently it did. When archaeologists dig up their bones, they see like a huge surplus in calcium. I want to know how some ancient, maybe illiterate Roman doctor was like, oh yeah, let's mix this like ash of burned bones into the wine and your bones will be better.
That's crazy. I don't know how they figured that out.
Yeah, they were ugly because they had bad teeth from all that bean chewing and all those legumes. This like holds true for animals too. Like carnivores had better teeth than herbivores. They were essentially just like swole vegetarians. They had one arm longer than the other from carrying like a heavy weapon and training with it for so long. A bunch of healed blunt force trauma wounds. And the benefit of this carb-heavy diet is that gladiators would get this thick layer of subcutaneous fat that would shield your vital organs, but it would let you take flesh wounds that would bleed a lot and put on a good show. When you look at some of these engravings of gladiators, they are some thick boys.
Wow, so that gladiator he fights at the end of the movie is actually kind of like an accurate depiction of what a gladiator might look like.
Yeah.
So you can just take a lot more flesh wounds if you're a big guy.
Yeah, truly, it's like the type of athleticism they're looking for, I think, is like an NFL lineman. You need to be a big guy who can do short, intense bursts of speed and violence.
And take stabs. You can get stabbed.
Yeah. I'm just saying they could have cast Russell Crowe now.
Russell Crowe now. They should have put him in Gladiator too. He would have looked more like a real gladiator than Paul Mescal.
As Russell Crowe said, all we can do is choose. Hey, how we die?
So, like, why do this? What was the purpose of gladiatorial shows? The purpose is quite literally said in the most famous line of this film. Are you not entertained? Unlike chariot racing or other ancient games you can think of like the Olympics, gladiatorial shows were not tied to the state or any official state religion. They were put on by the elite. They are a great way to garner goodwill with the plebs during the Republic. Rich aristocrats put on private games of their own private money to get the goodwill of the plebs. And then when Rome switches to an empire, all the games in Rome itself exclusively put on by the emperor and the imperial household. They own every single gladiator school in the city of Rome.
Wow. So the government has a monopoly on gladiator shows. They have a monopoly on cheers.
Yes.
And plebeian acclaim for gladiators. It's like a crazy way to like control political support.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know how Mao said political power comes out of the barrel of a gun?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Roman one is like political power comes out of the gladiator school.
Our blood sport that we put on.
Yeah. Tacitus, I saw, once wrote that gladiatorial matches were the most common topic of conversation amongst contemporaries.
Yeah, like sports, right? You see it in the wall art of Pompeii. On the lamps, where they decorate the lamps with a drawing, gladiators are the second most common thing that they would draw.
They found it on cups as far as Afghanistan, I believe, on like glass cups.
Mm-hmm.
And this was only one of their sports leagues, right? Like they also had chariot racing, the blues versus the yellows or whatever. Like,
yeah, the green team. I'm a green team guy myself.
Okay, so how's this work? Okay, so in the Republic period, I'm from a noble family, and I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to get involved in politics. Thinking about running for office, maybe some lower office. The idea is like, I go to an editor, and I'm like, here's some money.
No, you are the editor, as the person putting on the game.
Oh, I become the editor. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm both the editor and the munus?
Munus is the Latin word for gift. It is what they call the games that were put on, right? Because you are gifting the games to the people.
So the modern equivalent is like Kamala Harris is like, well, I want to run for president. I'm going to put on an NFL game and I'm going to pay for the teams to be there and for the stadium operation that day. And I sort of sell like subsidized tickets, or I give away tickets to I guess the giving away is really the key part there. That's kind of how you get the support.
Yeah, the tickets were free.
The tickets were free. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Or Kamala is giving them away. Kamalus.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of makes sense, because I always assumed it was just like, today's show is sponsored by Gracchus or whatever. It is partly that, but then also just like, he gets to give away the tickets.
And you're standing in the box. You're the one who's deciding who lives or who dies.
That's an insane political system, but okay.
Yeah. That's why we started with 45 minutes of history. It's because this shit is interesting.
I just wanted to mention a couple of fun facts about the Colosseum itself, like as a building. I had saw that they used to have these sort of wooden structures for watching gladiators fight, but there were like massive crowds that caused a collapse of one that apparently caused 20,000 people to die, which was the low estimate. 20,000 is insane. That's like a third of the size of the Colosseum, which convinced the Senate to we need a better stadium. But 50,000 is not that different from a stadium of today. Like, we really haven't increased stadium capacity that much in the last 2,000 years. And I also did see that not only do you like need a ticket to enter, and that it had tickets, but your ticket had a section, row, and seat number, which is crazy. Like, that still exists in the exact same way.
In a mostly illiterate society, too, is the other crazy thing. I'm sure those must have been like pictograms, right? Or like maybe you can recognize like an I or an X or whatever. Maybe it was just Roman numerals, but...
Right. I'm in seat cow. I'm in seat bull, you know?
Yeah.
And there were also programs printed for the day's events and breakdowns of the fights. This is such a similar experience to how sports spectatorship happens today. I also saw that the Gladiator season is in the fall and spring because the summer was too hot, even with those shaded apparatuses that they installed on the roof.
Nice. Yeah. Just one quick little note, because I think it does kind of matter for a film. If you become a gladiator, you get something called infamia, like infamy. You are at the lowest rung of the social hierarchy. I mean, you are quite literally a slave, but you're selling your body for money. So you're up there with pimps, or down there with pimps and sex workers and all the other jobs that involve selling your body. And you end up forfeiting some of your rights. You can no longer represent yourself or others in court. You can't witness a will. You can't vote. You can't serve in the army. You can't act as a magistrate or a juror. You can't even go to the fucking theater.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's no recourse from arbitrary physical punishment by magistrates. And this also applied to gladiator trainers, lanistae.
Interesting.
Right? It is moral delinquency. So in our film, when we eventually get to it, when you have this like general in the Roman army become a gladiator and you see him all shook up about it, this is like how far he has fallen.
Yeah, there was a weird class idea here where it's like, because you are serving someone else, you're low class, like you're an entertainer. It's almost not compatible with the way that we view class in modern life, where a lot of it is just driven by like how much money you have and like how much capital you own, but like
and how much fame you have, right? The fact that you could have money and fame and still be at the bottom rung of the social hierarchy.
Yeah, it's, I guess like the closest thing we would have would be like a porn star, I suppose.
And not every emperor liked gladiator shows. The real Marcus Aurelius didn't attend them. He tried to regulate them. He required these blunt weapons. And he's not the only emperor to attempt to regulate this institution. One of the funniest things about reading this book is reading about all these attempts of the emperors to pass laws or regulate, but in a pre-modern state, before advanced bureaucracies, they have like very little ability to enforce their will. So we see in 38 BCE, a law is passed prohibiting any senator or their sons from appearing as gladiators. 16 years later, in 22 BCE, Augustus has to restate the law because I guess it didn't stick, and he even extends it to the next lower order, the equestrians, just below senators. But people kept ignoring the law. So Tiberius, the next emperor, he decrees exile for senators and equestrians who deliberately acquired infamia, and he extends the ban even further to the great-grandchildren of senators. The punishment for doing this now was the prohibition of proper burial. which means that your soul can't go to the afterlife.
Wow.
It's Augustus Tiberius, and then 38 BCE. I don't know who passed that law, because it's before Augustus, but after the death of Caesar. But like, that is 2.5 successive emperors who are trying to regulate this thing, and they can't keep these affluent motherfuckers from death driving their way into the arena.
I just had a couple miscellaneous notes on slaves that didn't really fit anywhere else, but it was in that book that I thought were really interesting. Harry Sidebottom talks about just how alien people were in the sense of like how they treated sex and their slaves, where there are frescoes apparently that people would have in their own homes, in like rooms that other people would see, of like them having sex with their wife. And there's one of like a guy and his wife, and the wife is doing reverse cowgirl, and she's staring in the eyes of a slave while the slave is like about to offer some kind of drink, right? Where it's like either they just weren't shy about sex and like didn't care if their friends saw a painting of them doing it, or they just thought so little of slaves that to them it was like, I can't be embarrassed over a slave seeing me have sex. That would be like being embarrassed because the dog saw me having sex or something.
Yeah, there's no such thing as privacy in the ancient world.
We talked about this with Mike Duncan, remember? You just have people in your room all the time.
Yep.
All right, yeah, it's been a while now, so let's get into the movie. Damn, I love when we shoehorn in your classics background into an episode. All right, let's talk about our characters
of the 2000 film Gladiator, to remind you in case you forgot.
Right. We got Maximus Maximus Decimus Meridius. This is a real salt of the earth guy right here, you know?
Oh, tell me about it. He can't stop thinking about touching wheat.
That's all he wants. He's humble. You know, he yearns for a bucolic life. He's put in his time in the Roman army as an incredible general, but not for personal empowerment or riches or fame. It's just he's a real lunch pail general.
He's never even been to Rome, it's said in the first thing.
Really?
He's from Spain. He fights on the frontier. Your favorite adjective for a flat character? He is stoic, unflappable.
Right.
The only time we see him lose his cool is the "Are you not entertained?" line. That's like the most emotion we're going to see, or the most agitation we're going to see him show.
And yeah, he's reluctant. He doesn't want to even be the emperor when he's like offered the role, the leader of Rome. Unless I can touch wheat and throw a ball with my son, I don't want it.
Pilum, I believe is the Latin word, or pila, excuse me.
Yeah, unless I can throw a pila with my son. And he doesn't want to fight in the gladiator pits. He always has to be cajoled into it. You know, he's not a guy who's like necessarily violent by nature. This is just a job.
Clocks in, clocks out. The only other character with any depth is the Emperor Commodus, played by Joaquin Phoenix. He is indulgent. He is sadistic. He is narcissistic. And he's got major daddy issues.
Yeah, he's unstable. He craves approval from his father. He's power hungry.
He is incestuously infatuated with his sister.
He's the opposite of Maximus Decimus, basically.
I just want to say, in real history, Commodus was the gladiator of the title. He clocked in so much time. Like, my hot take is that the actual gladiator, Commodus, in history.
He killed like, I think 100 lions in the Colosseum with one shot apiece, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, he put on a lot of games for himself, but we'll talk more about this later.
Yeah.
A quick note on these actors, by the way. Russell Crowe, this made him into the A-lister that we've had ever since. But, like, he had only done LA Confidential and Michael Mann's The Insider at this point. And likewise, you know, the studio actually wanted Jude Law to play Commodus. But Scott insisted on Joaquin Phoenix, who had this kind of Joker-fied twinkle in his eye, I guess.
It's true. No, he crushes in the role.
Okay, let's get into the plot of Gladiator. They're doing the Roman woman singing style thing, like from Rome Total War. There's a battle in Germany. They're always trying to conquer the frontier, right? I think as you put it. Not always looking to settle these lands, but important to have like a buffer.
Yes.
Germany's always bubbling over with these insane, giant, blonde-haired people. And I love that this movie opens with like a long battle scene. Because this is coming out in the shadow of Saving Private Ryan. And you really get the sense that this is like the kind of beat that Ridley Scott is trying to recreate here. This is a Beaches of Normandy ass battle.
Yeah, we get to see every different phase, every different possible combination of ancient warfare. We got the archers and the arrows and the fire arrows. We got the heavy infantry who are going to do the testudo formation to block the arrows. We get the cavalry charge. We get the ballistae siege equipment. You get it all. It is a maximalist movie, no pun intended.
Yeah, and you see the kind of contrast between the primitive passion of the barbarian Germans versus the mechanic discipline of the Roman army.
Yeah.
So yeah, Maximus wins the day. Commodus, he arrives late with his sister, and he's excited. He tells his sister, actually, father is about to announce me his successor today. Ben, yeah, you mentioned that the Roman emperor would have actually been with the army because it's a good way to make sure that they don't mutiny.
Yep. And if most of your authority comes from the army, certainly by the high and later empire, the Roman emperors are spending very little time in Rome. They're spending a lot of their time with the army, traveling to the various frontiers. They're on the road. They're road dogs.
And right away, you're seeing conversations between Commodus and Maximus, where Commodus is like, "Who you got? Who do you support? The emperor or the Senate? There's two types of guys. You're Republican or Democrat. You support the emperor or the Senate."
Not a subtle film.
And Commodus, he's more of an emperor guy. He tells Maximus, the Senate, they'll pour honeyed potion in your ear about how great the Senate is.
And he just tries to dodge the question. In the same way, it's are you a boobs or ass guy? I'm a personality guy. It's are you a Senate or an emperor? He's I'm a Rome guy.
Yeah, meanwhile, Marcus Aurelius, he's old as hell. He's in his tent, and he's like, damn, what are we here for? He's getting real philosophical.
And when Giordano says he's old as hell, the actor is 2 years away from dying.
Yeah.
It's the first Dumbledore who is playing Marcus Aurelius.
And he's saying stuff like, what kind of emperor will I be known as? Will I be known as a philosopher? A little bit of that winking, here. Everybody, is familiar, I'm sure, with Marcus Aurelius's meditations.
And I got to jump in for just a quick second here. I did an undergrad in classics, then I did a master's, then I did a PhD. I spent 13 years of my life studying this stuff. I never once was assigned Marcus Aurelius's meditations in all of that time, because it's the stoic shower thoughts of a kind of dumb guy. One of his deep philosophical quotes is something along the lines of, "We've spent enough time trying to define what a good man is. Just be one." Just do it, man. Yeah, there's a reason that this particular brand of Stoic philosophy was picked up by the self-help online Stoic bros. There's so much more to Stoicism than the self-help books.
Yeah, truly the Facebook posting emperor, with some of these quotes. He's posting these quotes with a picture of a Peaky Blinders guy with a cigar in his mouth, These were from his diary. We don't know if this was actually meant to be published, right?
Yeah.
It just appeared in 900. Some monk had it. Was dude, this shit fucking goes hard.
The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Live, laugh, love. When you arise in the morning, think about what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live.
Yeah, oh, hell yeah, bro.
Okay, back to the movie.
So Marcus Aurelius is what are we doing? Why
are we killing all these Germans?
Yeah. I love that Maximus is almost a little insulted by this introspection, where he's like, well, we should have figured that out before we came here, and all these people died. And so Marcus Aurelius, he's like, what if there's an idea of Rome? One of many times where the phrase idea of Rome is said out loud, and you're just supposed to know what it means. It's never elaborated on, ever.
It's because Rome is whatever it means to you, Giordano, in the year 2000.
Your own personal Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the weakest parts of this movie definitely is this just shoehorned in Empire Senate thing. They don't even know what they're doing. What do you mean the idea of Rome? That's what it's all about. You care to flesh that out a little bit?
I'm pretty sure that slaughter you just did on the frontier, that's the idea of Rome.
Right? Yeah, true.
Well, you just did it, my man.
But Marcus Aurelius, he's like, you know what? Our idea of Rome levels are historically low right now. We need to get our idea of Rome levels back up to the top by going back to the Senate. The classic, probably like boomer thing, honestly. They always look back to the greatest generation. They were doing that a lot right now. Saving Private Ryan was all about that, right? We are a decadent society that has forgotten where we came from. Right? We need to return. Right. That's what this conversation is about. And so the emperor, he goes to his son and he's like, listen, I know you always wanted to be emperor, but we need to return or whatever. And Commodus, he doesn't take this well. He kills his father.
He literally hugs him to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a nice little dialogue where Commodus is like the crying Wojak when he hears that he's not going to be emperor. And he has a line where he says, you wrote to me what the virtues are. Again, like winking at the audience about the 4 Stoic virtues. And then it gets the 4 Stoic virtues wrong, which is very funny. It says, none of your virtues are mine. Temperance, wisdom, justice, fortitude. It says, but I got my own virtues. You know, I got ambition. And I got courage. And basically, he goes fishing for compliments and he catches a boot when Marcus Aurelius says, your failures as a son are my failures as a father.
Owned.
Then Commodus hugs his father to death.
Now Commodus has Maximus. He has him taken out to be killed, right? Because even though Maximus has tried to decline the offer, all he wants to do is go back to his farm in Spain. But his duty keeps him from doing so. He loves thinking about this farm. He wants to go touch the wheat.
They announce that the emperor's dead. Maximus is getting ready to take power, but look at this. He's arrested. Guards take him out back to be killed. But there's yet another fight scene. Maximus, even with his hands tied, overpowers these guys, escapes, and then rides directly from the Rhine River, presumably, on the border between France and Germany, all the way to Spain, to the sepia-toned wheat fields. He just wants to go out and touch wheat so bad, but his family has been killed. He is too late. They have been like burned and hanged and crucified and all those nasty Roman death stuff. He's on the ground in Spain where he's picked up by some slavers of some kind and brought to Algeria.
And this place is very Arabian coded. They got the turbans on. They're negotiating by squeezing each other's balls, you know? We meet Proximo, Maximus's trainer throughout the movie, played by some British actor, apparently like a legendary drunk actor. He actually died during the filming of the movie because he got in a drinking contest with some British sailors on Malta.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
Oliver Reed is the guy.
Oliver Reed, yeah. Go look up like the number of drinks he had before he had a heart attack and died. Well, he specifically had like 1 million drinks drinking against these young sailors and then arm wrestled them, apparently beat 3 of them, and then like died of a heart attack.
I think it's the arm wrestling. I think it's a dangerous sport that needs to be regulated.
It's human cockfighting is what it is. So yeah, he's bought and sold as a gladiator. I think they see that he's a former soldier. He makes friends with a Nubian gladiator from a salt mine in Carthage, and they train together. Meanwhile, back in Rome, Commodus, he gets a famous Roman procession. The crowd, they don't love him, though. They call him the usurper. Ben, you said that this probably not how regular people would have seen an emperor like Commodus.
Certainly not right at the beginning of the reign. Usually, I think they would take pretty kindly to a new emperor.
But also, like, the things that he likes is, like, he likes throwing games, you know? He likes cross-dressing or whatever. Like,
Yep.
And Commodus, he's saying stuff like the Senate doesn't understand the needs of the people. Actually, I guess not far off with that. He's kind of right with that one. He wants to get rid of the Senate.
Yeah, again, something no emperor ever thought of doing. Nobody ever thought of abolishing the Senate entirely. You need it to manage this fucking thing. But we need to heighten this conflict. He's going to get rid of the checks and balances, Giordano.
Right. They want to project like modern American sensibilities onto this setting, right? So this is what they're projecting into this situation. Ooh, they're getting rid of the institutions. The erosion of institutions. And he declares 150 days of games. Damn, that's a hell of a gladiator season.
I don't know if Commodus put up these numbers, but I know that Trajan's games were over 120 days. This is not absurd.
I think at one point the senators want him to provide sewers for the city's Greek district where the plague is raging. But Commodus, he says no. We need to focus on the games. He's ignoring infrastructure projects in favor of the bread and circuses, or just the circuses.
Well, we see them throw bread at some point.
That's true.
We flash back to Algeria, and Maximus, after initially refusing to train, he fights in the arena just like out of necessity because he's fighting for his life. So he's won the respect of the other slave gladiators. They call him the Spaniard. And it's in this fight, the first big arena fight that we see, where he kills all the other combatants. I believe this is the fight where he's chained to another gladiator, which is a Ridley Scott invention to my knowledge. He kills all the guys, throws a sword at the editor, at the guy putting on the games, and shouts the iconic line, "Are you not entertained?" Which is so funny. This line is meant to be critical of the blood sport, of the human cockfighting. He has just ended all these lives. He's meant to be dripping with disdain when he says, "Are you not entertained at this?" And it's become the iconic meme line of the movie that we all love.
It's said sincerely. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
We have more on this later.
So the guy running his little ludus, his little gladiator school, is a former gladiator, Proximo. He wants to take Maximus to Rome to fight in front of the emperor in the Colosseum. And the little carrot that he dangles in front of him is that if you get good enough in Rome, you could win your freedom. They give you the little wooden sword that means that you're free.
So they get to Rome. It's CGI, but in 2000. It actually doesn't look that bad for something made in 2000. And, he gets to Rome. Prostitutes are throwing themselves at him. They got this part right, I guess, about being a gladiator. Meanwhile, Commodus is coming on to his sister. He's a real freak, guys.
Mm-hmm.
He's bad. He's into incest. And we get a little bit of like the showmanship of the Roman Colosseum, right? They kind of play it up to be like WWE, like a little bit. They got the announcer. They're showing you how they're sort of like remaking historical battles for the crowd, right? Again, like part of that reinforcing of empire. Like, ooh, wouldn't you love to see battles that we've won in the past against people dressed like the people we killed?
And this is true. The Romans did do this, reenact historical battles. The one thing that they get wrong, the Romans never, ever reenacted a battle that Romans fought in because they didn't want what happened in this movie to happen, where the Romans lose. They would do historical battles like the Persians versus the Athenians at Salamis. And if the Persians actually won, who cares? Rome runs everything now.
True.
Like the message you're saying is like, we run the whole world. We control geography. We kind of control time because we're putting on these historic battles. And actually, it doesn't matter. You're all Roman. Fuck you.
So Maximus is put in the middle of a chariot battle. And, he coaches people into beating the chariots. They're underdogs and they win. They flip them over like they're in a car chase. There's a repeating crossbow in this scene. Even lady gladiators, which there were occasionally some. Yeah.
There were. We have evidence for them, but it was extremely uncommon.
Like a sideshow. They'd fight dwarves and stuff.
Yeah, well, dwarves would fight dwarves and women would fight women, but
I've heard women would fight dwarves sometimes. Like, that's the sideshow part of the...
Yeah, and also it was there to be, like, titillating. Like, in the same way that the women of the WWE are sexy babes that fight each other. Like, that's part of the appeal. They also would dress them up like Amazons from myth. So once again, Rome controls time and geography and space and everything. It is all encompassing. It is everything.
So because Maximus is won, the emperor goes into the middle of the arena, but he can't kill him. They can't kill each other, Commodus can't kill Maximus because he's in front of the crowd who loves him, who loves Maximus. And Maximus can't kill Commodus because, there's a kid there who would be unsightly.
Yeah, it's the nephew. Commodus's nephew is there. And the holy bond between uncle and nephew must be respected. This is also where we get the second most famous line of the film.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true emperor, Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
So, the rest of this movie can drag a little bit. First 60% is much better than the last bit, but this is where we start to get a little bit of intrigue, where they're going to depose Commodus and restore the Senate. The stuff that doesn't really work as well as just like the kind of bare Roman stuff.
The mindless show of blood sport, yes. There's another one where we get the tigers in it, which is pretty sick.
Right. Something true to life. I think a lot of the shows in the Colosseum were hunts, animal hunts. And so they've got these tigers, I don't know, from India, I guess.
Oh yeah, this is their way of fixing the match. So like the intrigue is happening behind the scenes. Commodus still wants to kill Maximus. So they get a big guy. This is where they get the guy with the historically accurate gladiator body. He says, "Don't worry. It's been arranged."
He's undefeated, yeah.
In like a Dr. Evil style thing where like as these two guys are fighting, there's also going to be 4 tigers on chains who are going to maul them. And this is so fucking stupid because the tigers have just as much of an opportunity to get your guy as they do the guy you're trying to kill.
But yeah, Maximus kills the undefeated champion as well as the tigers. This was actually originally supposed to be a fight between Maximus and his handler Proximo, I believe. But because, like I said, Proximo died, they had to change this to some champion. I watched the DVD featurettes of like the making of, and Russell Crowe is hamming it up so much in those. He's very funny. When they're shooting the scene with the tigers, he's doing like a Steve Irwin impression to the camera, which isn't too hard for him considering he's Australian. And yeah, rest of the movie, Commodus decides he's gonna kill Maximus himself in the arena, but stab him first to give him this like unfair advantage, right? I mean, Commodus also discovers the Senate's plan to restore the Republic by sussing it out through his nephew and then holding his nephew hostage. And so even though Maximus is stabbed, he sort of uses all of his remaining will to kill Commodus in the arena. So in real life, Commodus was killed by a wrestler. He was also emperor for 15 years.
Yes.
First. So a little bit of a departure from reality.
Yeah, and he was just like strangled in the bathroom, basically, on his way to the Colosseum. It's such a shame. Like, Commodus, one of the things that makes him so interesting and so wacky is that he spent so much time in the arena. He was the gladiator emperor. That was the defining trait of his reign. He couldn't stop going in there. And I'm like, I'm sure the numbers are exaggerated, and I'm sure the matches were rigged and faked and whatever, but isn't that also kind of interesting? The autocrat playing rigged matches, you know, Kim Jong-un dunking a basketball or whatever. Isn't that kind of fun and wacky? Wish I could have seen more Commodus gladiatoring.
I wanted to quickly read Roger Ebert's review because I thought it was really funny. He did not like the movie. Gave it 2 out of 4 stars. He says that the film just looked bad. It was too gray, all fuzzy and indistinct. Its colors are, quote, mud tones at the drab end of the palette. The characters bring no cheer. They're bitter, vengeful, depressed. He doesn't like these kinds of characters. By the end of this long film, I would have traded any given gladiatorial victory for just one shot of blue skies.
Damn.
I love this quote. The same story could have had rousing entertainment. I've just revisited the wonderful Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is just as dim-witted but 12 times more fun. But Gladiator lacks joy. It employs depression as a substitute for personality and believes that if the characters are bitter and morose enough, we won't notice how dull they are. So yeah, he wants them to be a little cheerier, a little more energetic. All this stoicism.
I mean, the games were meant to be fun, I suppose, but I think it's hard for us as modern people to divorce the blood sport aspect of it.
He also didn't like the WWE type stuff. He complains, an announcer literally addresses the crowd in these words, "Caesar is pleased to bring you the only undefeated champion." And so, yeah, he wasn't a big fan of that kind of modernization. And he had a lot of Pedant's Corner issues with the movie. He says, when Maximus wins his first big fight, it's up to Commodus to decide whether he will live or die. Live, live, the fans chant. And Commodus, bowing to their will, signals with a thumbs up. This demonstrates that Commodus was not paying attention in Caesar school, since the practice at the Colosseum at the time was to close the thumb in the fist to signal life, and extend the thumb meant death. Luckily, no one else in the Colosseum knows this either.
I don't even think he's right on that. Like, nobody is sure what the direction of the thumb is because it just says to extend. In the book that I just read that came out last year and I finished today, there's no consistency. No one's absolutely certain. You can't be a pedant about the thumbs up, thumbs down.
Just crazy that he devoted that many words to the thumbs up or thumbs down historical inaccuracy when not one word is mentioned about the entire plot being...
Which is, yeah, invented whole cloth. There was no Maximus Meridius Decimus or whatever.
It's like smells so highly of like a guy who knows one thing about ancient Rome and is like angry, like trying to brag about it. And apparently not even true, to your point. But yeah, not a big fan. So anyway, let's talk about our themes. So like we said, like we've been saying, a major theme of this movie is the decline of empire, specifically around cultural decay. And so this is wish casting for an American empire that's about to enter a decline in the 21st century.
I think it's really such a shame that this movie isn't smarter. Like, you could make a really interesting critique of American empire that's grounded in the Romans, because, you know, the Romans are using foreign wars to acquire thousands of human beings as chattel slaves and then throw them into a battle royale meat grinder for the entertainment of their poor and illiterate working classes, to whom we see them quite literally toss bread at the circus. And our hero, who served this system with duty and honor, is betrayed by it, right? This could be a great way of saying, like, you think the empire is good, but look at it with clear eyes for just a second. It could be a fiery fucking political statement if the film were better and smarter. But instead, we get multiple characters having these circuitous fucking dialogues that go something like this. What was the war for? For Rome. What is Rome? Rome is an idea. Cool, dude. Very anti-imperialist. Or maybe pro-imperialist? Is the idea of Rome good? Unclear. Rome is a dream. It's a light. It's a fragile little secret. But what are its qualities? Spoiler alert, Rome is America. They don't articulate it because they want you to think Rome is America. To the extent there is any kind of political message of this film, it seems to be, number one, autocracy is bad. Never mind that most of Rome's territorial expansion came during its Republican, quote-unquote, democratic phase. And two, blood sport is bad, kind of, but also it's cool and interesting, and we watch it for money.
Yeah. There's also some like meritocracy versus nepotism tied in this like decline idea. I mean, one of the primary differences between the Empire and Republic seems to just be like how we decide who the leader is. So you mentioned the High Empire is basically like until the end of, is it the Flavian dynasty?
Commodus is like the end of the High Empire. The 5 emperors leading up to Commodus are called the 5 good emperors, called the Antonine dynasty. I think it's hyphenated sometimes. But these are the 5 that Edward Gibbon called the 5 good emperors, because they figured out the problem with succession. The Julio-Claudians and the Flavians, they were just choosing their oldest son or whatever, or their son-in-law. They were doing that monarchy shit. And they ended up with some real duds in there. You know, your Caligulas, your Neros, your Domitians, your bad emperors. But these 5 guys, like Trajan, Hadrian, Nerva, Marcus Aurelius, whatever, they figured out that to smooth out the succession, you choose someone who's not a blood relative and you adopt them in your will posthumously. And like the succession is a lot cleaner. And then Marcus Aurelius breaks a cycle with Commodus, and then he dies, and there's a big ass civil war.
I see. The movie's concern, I think, is one of the forms of decline we're seeing is a more like inherited nepotistic society. One of the things I think that people sort of like held up about the Republic was at least it was kind of meritocratic, right? Like whatever senator was power hungry enough to like grab the consulship would lead things. Whereas, like, sometimes you end up with Commodus just because he's, like, the son of the famous philosopher king, and everybody knows he's insane. He's a Targaryen-style leader.
Truly.
Which probably wasn't happening as much in the Republic period.
Yeah. Okay, next big theme that we got is, I called it Duty, Honor, Patriotism, Rome. It's all kind of a fucking soup in there, right? Like our hero, Marcus Meridius Decimus, whatever, he's literally got the SBQR tattooed on his fucking bicep. And the ideas of patriotism would be so foreign to a Roman soldier. Hard to do this counting precisely, but maybe between a half to 2/3 of Roman emperors were killed by members of the Roman military. They are putting up fucking numbers, let me tell you. And the closest this film gets to capturing the vibe of a Roman soldier is as they are doing this intrigue and plot, Maximus is going from the Colosseum in chains back to his gladiator school, and he's approached by one of his old Roman soldiers. And one of his subordinates finds him in Rome and says his old troops are staying in Ostia, that's Rome's port, and they're ready to overthrow the state at a moment's notice. They're loyal to him, not to Rome. And, you know, Maximus, as this duty-bound, honor-bound guy, he has this character arc where he's a loyal servant of Rome who is betrayed and ends up as a slave at the bottom of the social hierarchy, and he hates it so much that he's cutting off his tattoo. Then he becomes a co-conspirator in a coup to reinstall the Republic, right? He goes from like worshiping Rome to hating Rome to trying to save Rome, put it all on the line for it, right? He's dedicated to this thing, flawed, warts and all.
Let's talk about hedonism.
Sexless hedonism. How the fuck are you going to make a movie about ancient Rome and have it turn out so sexless? HBO's Rome, we actually criticized it a little bit for being like so gratuitous. I think we were mostly saying they put sexual violence in there at some points where they didn't always need it. But yeah, ancient Rome is known for being lascivious and scandalizing. The gladiators were sex symbols. There's ancient graffiti that we have in Pompeii where the gladiators are boasting of their sexual conquests. There's misogynistic satires talking about wives running off with gladiators. Almost none of this makes it into the film. Maximus doesn't even have sex in the film. And part of what makes a bad emperor bad is their perversion and decadence and hedonism. That's all across the Roman sources. And you can quibble about the accuracy because all of our written sources were written by the senatorial elites who hated the emperors, and they made all the same types of accusations. But ancient Romans thought that their emperors were sex criminals that would make Jeffrey Epstein blush. Okay? Where is this shit? Commodus' sister infatuation, that's softcore. Game of Thrones has more. And I want to tell you a little story about the Caligula biopic that came out. Caligula, emperor who is said to have had sex with all three of his biological sisters. In 1979, they wanted to make a Sword and Sandal film about the emperor Caligula. Peep these stats, okay? Screenwritten by Gore Vidal, one of 20th century America's greatest public intellectuals. Stars Malcolm McDowell, Dame Helen Mirren, Academy Award winner, Peter O'Toole, Academy Award lifetime winner, directed by this avant-garde Italian filmmaker named Tinto Brass, and this movie should have been excellent. Unfortunately, the production company ran out of money and was bailed out by Penthouse, who inserted a bunch of hardcore pornography into the film. And that is closer to the spirit of what we need for a Mad Emperor-style Sword and Sandal film. Like, Giordano, you mentioned the Targaryens, right? George R.R. Martin is cribbing all this shit from the lives of the Roman emperors, as told by Suetonius or Tacitus or these other guys.
Gotcha. A theme I found really interesting in this movie is just like our relationship to violence as entertainment. You know, the most famous line from this movie, "Are you not entertained?" Right? We mentioned that he's being sarcastic. He's mocking the crowd for finding this entertaining. To a certain extent, he's also breaking the fourth wall here, because we have this very schizophrenic nature in the way that we view violence, where it's like we all think it's bad and we're all very entertained by watching it. And so there's like this hypocrisy they're playing with, right? If it's fictionalized, we want to see it, even if in real life we would frown upon it. And so like everybody that Maximus kills, other than like Commodus, is a slave. Maximus spends this entire movie killing slaves. And we're like, yay, rewind it. I want to see that again. People who are forced to fight. So we constantly have to put these reinforcements in both movies, in this one and Gladiator 2. There's always like, right before he kills someone, Paul Mescal and Russell Crowe need to be like, I don't want to do it. Don't make me do it. You know? And then he does it like in a very spectacular fashion.
I can if I want to, but I don't want to.
And I do think it's interesting because they don't often show animal hunts, even though these were very common, because I think there's something where because animal hunts are like recent enough in memory or like still happening that like we don't want to see that. We don't want to see someone kill an animal. We would like to see someone kill a slave, apparently. It's a very strange thing about our psychology that is still present in our brains, even if like we've outlawed it and wouldn't actually want to see it. But like, you know, the UFC's first creative director, and I'm stealing this from Daniele Bolelli, he was a producer on HBO's Rome. And UFC fights in this era, like when Gladiator came out, used to feature a gladiator opening the fight and doing the sand thing, like Maximus, like picking up the sand. We see them as modern day gladiators.
Giordano, can I blow your mind for a second? Do you want to know what the Latin word for sand is?
What's that?
arena.
Oh, wow. Damn, that is crazy.
Yeah.
I think there just is something, especially in the 2000s, which I think was like a very violent decade. I've heard Matt Christman talk about how like Limp Bizkit and like nu metal in general represents this kind of violent American id at the turn of the millennium, right? I want to break stuff. And I think the UFC becoming popular and the war in Iraq, like it's all sort of tied in with that. And I love the irony of this movie because these games are put on to placate people so that they don't ask for more political power. So like Maximus as a gladiator is both placating people into accepting a despotic emperor in the sense that he's providing them entertainment that will act as like a release valve for stress. But also on a surface level, he's trying to get rid of the emperor and like the institutions of having a king. And so I find that juxtaposition is very interesting and fun to play with.
Yeah, a lot of people quote the bread and circuses line, which is from the satirist Juvenal, but they don't quote the full context. It's a long poem, but if you look at the lines just before it, Juvenal writes, "That same crowd in a moment would have hailed their new Augustus. They shed their sense of responsibility long ago when they lost their votes and the bribes, semicolon. The mob that used to grant power, high office, the legions, everything, curtails its desires and reveals its anxiety for two things only, bread and circuses. The mob used to be responsible for granting power, offices, legions, everything, giving something to these people who wanted it, right? That was their power to give, and now all they have is the power to demand the entertainment and the bread."
Wow. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the style of this movie. We've complained a lot about the plot and some of the themes, but I do think that where this movie really excels is the style.
Yes.
You know?
Oh, please, waiter. I couldn't eat another bite of steak, but I will take some sizzle. Give me all the sizzle that you have.
This movie has masterful practical effects. 715 extras, 120 horses, real siege equipment, 2,000 weapons were created for the battles, and also 10,000 arrows. The Roman costumes look incredible. When they fucking wheel out the real ballistae, you're like, holy shit, this is not a CGI ballistae. Ridley Scott found a forest that was due for deforestation and was like, hold on, let me destroy it first. Germany is filmed in Britain. Rome is filmed in Malta. North Africa is filmed in Morocco, all on location. Hans Zimmer, who's better than him at doing a score?
I need Hans.
He's doing basically the Pirates of the Caribbean theme, but played less loudly. They recreated the Colosseum, the first 25 feet of it for the shots of Rome, so that it would be in the background. They didn't do the whole thing, but just the bottom 25 feet. And so it's the plot itself, revenge film. Guy has his family killed. One of the fucking hackiest moves in cinema, which is they killed some guy's family. Imagine how pissed off he'd be. Imagine how much revenge he'd want. The classic movie complaint that anytime you see a woman, it's oh yeah, she's going to be killed to motivate the man.
Yeah, is she happy and loyal? Oof, death sentence.
Yeah. I watched the beginning of Gladiator 2, and it's the second you see his wife hanging laundry, you're that's the deadest woman of all time.
Yup.
And this political plot that is more about our modern insecurities than it is Romans, but it doesn't matter in some ways. It's not a great movie, but it's a B movie because the style is so great. Apparently how they pitched it to Ridley Scott is they showed him that 19th century painting. It's Gladiator looking up at an emperor who's doing the thumbs down. And before the guy even got into it, Ridley Scott was I'll do it. We've heard about turning a video game into a movie. We've heard about turning a comic book into a movie. What if they turned a painting into a movie? That's basically what this is. And stylistically, it succeeded quite a bit. It is just really good to watch, to look at, rather. Speaking of this just being all style and no substance, one of the ways in which this manifests itself is that there was never really a script. None of the original script really made it. A lot of the lines were improvised. A lot of the big one. Russell Crowe improvised the line strength and honor. Not something that Roman said, by the way. He was just this sounds right. Joaquin Phoenix improvised Am I Not Merciful? When Crowe had to recount details of his fictional home in Spain to Marcus Aurelius, Ridley Scott was just tell me about how you think about Australia. And he started going off on it.
Good thing you didn't mention Kangaroos, drop bears.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Fosters, wallabies.
This movie cost $100 million to make. They improvised the fucking lines.
So sick. They hire like 750 extras. They build the bottom 25 feet of the Coliseum. And they're like, script, we'll figure it out, We'll figure it out as we go.
I know I'm forgetting something. What did I... Oh, God, the words!
But I mean, somehow they pulled it off. But I mean, it's like kind of what separates this movie from being like an A movie is that like, they may have wanted to figure out the plot a bit more and the dialogue. They're like, this part just says the idea of Rome. What did you mean by that? Don't worry, mate. We'll figure it out.
The idea of Rome was actually a placeholder that somebody forgot to keep writing.
And then Russell Crowe just read it out loud. All right. Echoes in the culture?
Sure.
Like we said up top, all of our 2000 Sword and Sandal movies are because of this movie. We've talked about Troy on our podcast. I rewatched Alexander for this episode. That movie sucks ass. I mean, there's like probably 2 or 3 intervals of greatness, like 10 to 15 minutes where you're like, wow, this actually is a phenomenal story about like a man who... Alexander went to fucking India.
Mm-hmm.
He conquered Punjab in like 300 BC. On like one expedition. And it's just like, how far do you want to go? Like you can just keep conquering, but it's like, when will you stop?
To what end?
To what end? And like, why? And as soon as he's forced to turn around and go home, he dies.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that like, there are so many long stretches of this movie that are absolute snooze fests. Val Kilmer, awful as Philip II. His mommy issues in this movie are so disconnected from the entire plot. They don't really make a lot of sense. Also, Oliver Stone like has the courage to make Alexander like very gay, but not to actually show him kiss a man at any moment. And it's like, bro, just commit, If this is the story you want to tell. King Arthur, remember that? We probably should watch that at some point and see if there's anything there. But Russell Crowe, kind of the other echo in the culture. He's echoed in eternity in his roles because of this movie. He won Best Actor.
Yeah, I was so sure this is going to be an unconscionable choice, but it seems to have been a slow year for movies. Remember Shuffle rule? These should be given out 10 years. It should have been given out in 2010. He beat out Tom Hanks for Castaway, Javier Bardem for Before Night Falls, which is a biopic.
A guy who was considered for the role of Maximus, by the way. Javier Bardem.
Nice. Ed Harris for Pollock, a biopic, and Jeffrey Rush for Quills, a biopic. Big year for biopics. It also won Best Picture, beating out Aaron Brockovich, Chocolat, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Traffic. So... yeah, maybe just a slow year, 2000.
Yeah. It's a better movie than Traffic. I'd have to rewatch the other ones to know.
And it was nominated for a bunch of others. It got like 9 nominations, and it won a bunch of the technical ones: costume design, visual effects. Despite the fact that we've spent all this time talking about how mid it is, this was not only commercially, but critically successful film.
Yeah, I mean, it won the Sizzle Awards. Best visual effects, best costume design, best sound, best sizzle. I wanted to give a quick shout out to the Sopranos episode. We talked about University on this show, but the idea that they would watch this movie and feel like they were sort of modern day gladiators is a very funny idea. That like they saw Maximus and they were like, that's freaking me.
Mm-hmm.
Bro.
No, you don't have a murdered wife and children. You are murdering wives and children.
Yeah, true.
Subtle difference.
Yeah, you're Commodus.
Mm-hmm.
And another little funny echo in the culture, I think definitely is that, okay, so this movie comes out in May of 2000. George Lucas is writing the script for Attack of the Clones from March to June of 2000.
Oh no.
And lo and behold, we get an extended scene in an alien coliseum in that movie. Mm-hmm. He absolutely was like, this would be very interesting. What if we had the Jedi Coliseum?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the sequel, Gladiator 2.
Oof.
Yikes, I couldn't finish this one. In the DVD featurette, I did think it was funny that there's a line where Russell Crowe is mocking the idea of a sequel. He's like, thankfully, I die in this movie, so there can't be a sequel. Wrong.
It's unwatchable.
All right, closing thoughts. I think we are showing great courage today by saying that this is a decent movie. Pretty good. If you're in the mood, I'd watch it. It's 3.5 stars. By the way, a lot of people I follow on Letterboxd, they just logged it as having watched it without giving it a rating, which is a coward's move, I believe. Be courageous enough to say it was pretty good.
It is truly so fine. The plot is bad. Like, so fucking bad. The characters are flat. The writing is mid. But the action sequence and the visuals are actually good enough to bring it up to a solid B- movie.
I'm going to even give it a B.
Okay.
But yeah, if you really got the Roman Empire on the mind, you can't do much better than this.
But I would like to have some elaborated closing thoughts with a second pedant's corner.
The pederass corner, I believe we called it.
No. So I want to talk about what might have been, right? So I'm not going to go through and point out historical inaccuracies. We'd be here for hours. It'd be fucking boring. Suffice it to say, there's nothing historically accurate about this film. We talked in our Master and Commander episode about the difference between accurate and authentic, because that film is completely fictionalized, but it's very authentic in its world and details. Yeah, Gladiator isn't authentic either. But in this pedant's corner, I just want to point out what an awesome, weird, hilarious movie we could have gotten if Ridley Scott and the crew had stuck a little closer to one particular source from the ancient world. Source background, okay. The Historia Augusta, the history of the Caesars. One of the main sources for the later Roman empires is this weird text called the Historia Augusta. And the reason it's weird is that it is basically a forgery, as in it isn't what it claims to be. Because it claims to be this collection of biographies written on all these different Roman emperors that ruled from 117 to 284. Their emperors, co-emperors, and their heirs. And it claims to be written by a bunch of different guys, written close-ish to the reigns it describes, and it claims to be real history. But in reality, it's written way later, like in the late 300s or maybe even early 400s. And it's also clearly one guy pretending to be lots of guys. It has all these documents and decrees that it presents that are completely unattested anywhere. It's trying to look like history, but it's probably basically closer to a novel. And for some of these later emperors, this is our only historical source. So even though it's so deeply flawed, historians can't throw it away. They need to be just very careful with how they use it.
Yeah, you were telling me that when it comes to Roman history, obviously there was lots of stuff written down, but a huge bottleneck in terms of what survived was based on whatever the Christian monks would have recreated in the Dark Ages or whatever. And a lot of the stuff that they chose to recreate was during the Christian period or during the period closest to Jesus's life, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's this gap, I think you said in the 3rd century, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we know almost nothing, very, very little.
The 3rd century also features this crisis where Rome almost falls and almost breaks up. I don't want to throw the Christian monks who were doing all that recopying under the bus entirely, but they have limited paper. They're making these judgment decisions. They prioritize Christian stuff, and then they prioritize authors that they could plausibly claim were secret Christians. They said Seneca was a secret Christian, and they said Virgil was a secret Christian, even though he died before the birth of Christ. It's not the only thing that factored into what you recopy. Generally, you prioritize things that are shorter than things that are longer. Where, Livy wrote 140-something books on the history of Rome, and, under 40 of them survive, or whatever. Damn. Just, it's a lot of fucking Livy to recopy. Let's just take the best bits. Yeah, there's a lot of factors at play, but we need the Historia Augusta. So I'm going to read you some choice quotes about what our wacky source says about the historical events of this film. From the first page of the biography, it says of Commodus, "For straight from his earliest boyhood, he was base, shameless, cruel, lecherous, defiled of mouth too, and debauched, already adept at those arts which do not accord with the position of emperor, in that he could mold cups, dance, sing, whistle, even play the buffoon and the gladiator to perfection." You knew he was a bad guy. He was molding cups out here, Giordano. He was arts and crafting. He was not made for the purple. But basically the entire life can be summed up with one line that the anonymous author wrote. Everything Commodus did was worse than what he had done before. It starts bad and it just keeps getting worse. So here are some of his sex crimes, which are fun. When he came back to Rome, he celebrated a triumph with Seotorus, his debaucherer. and placed him behind him in the chariot. In the course of the triumphal procession, Commodus several times turned his head and kissed him quite openly. He even did this in the orchestra. So right off the bat, I want gay Joaquin Phoenix in this film. I want him planning a kiss on his debaucherer. Another one. He had 300 concubines, whom he assembled together for the beauty of their person, recruiting both married women and whores, together with youths of ripe age, also 300 in number, whom he had collected, with beauty as the criterion, equally from the commons and the nobility, by force and by payment. He is said to have killed his sister Lucilla. That's the one that we see him have the incestuous crush on in this film. The source says that he kills her, and then, having debauched his other sisters, as it is said, and being joined in embraces with a cousin of his father, he even gave one of the concubines the name of his mother. Give me this wacky shit, Phil. Ridley Scott. Have the courage.
Damn, he's the villain of this movie, and he's made to be so much less insane than in real life, or at least in this, 3rd century hit piece that was published about him.
Oh, here's some of his sex shit. He used to order the concubines themselves to be debauched before his own eyes. He's a cuck guy. And he was not free from this disgrace of submitting sexually to young men, being defiled in every part of his body, even his mouth, with both sexes.
God damn. Who is the supposed author of this book?
It's like a made-up name.
Oh, okay. But it's supposed to be a historian, or is it like the Perez Hilton of the day or something?
It's supposed to be a historian, a real historian.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, significantly for our story, it says he fought in the arena, and he did it with points uncovered. He killed animals in the amphitheater because it was his practice to kill wild animals at home.
Just to clarify, moving on to his sports-related crimes, you know, he's defiling the beautiful game.
Yeah.
Gladiator.
Yes. He purchased chariot horses for himself and drove chariots in the dress of a charioteer. And I just love that this source is so uptight that the fact that he's driving chariots, as bad as the sex crimes, if you really think about it, because he's debasing himself.
Right. The infamia.
Mm-hmm. In the meanwhile, in the dress of a victim slayer, he slaughtered a sacrificial victim, and he fought in the arena with foils as a gladiator among the chamberlains with his sword's points uncovered. He was called Amazonius because of his passion for his concubine Marcia, whom he loved to have depicted as an Amazon, and for whose sake he even wished to enter the Roman arena in Amazon's dress. So now we also get some cross-dressing in here. He also engaged in gladiatorial combat and accepted a gladiator's name with pleasure, as if he were accepting triumphal honors. He always entered the public shows, and as often as he did so, he ordered it to be inscribed in the public records. He is in fact said to have fought 735 times. He's the gladiator. In the meantime, it is recorded he fought 365 times under his father, and further, he subsequently achieved so many gladiatorial crowns by defeating or killing net fighters that he reached 1,000. Moreover, he killed with his own hand many thousands of wild animals, even elephants. Frequently, it was before the eyes of the Roman people that he did this thing. Remember, when you think of a gladiator helmet, you think of the one that covers your entire face. That wasn't just practical. That was to hide your face from the infamia of selling your thing for money. And he's out there fighting hundreds, maybe thousands of times in front of the entire people as the emperor, as the guy at the top of the hierarchy.
He mentions the net fighters, retiarius. A lot of the gladiator types were based on conquered peoples, the Samaritan or whatever. But one of my favorites, I think the most iconic imagery-wise, is the fisherman type.
With the trident.
He's got a trident and a net, and on his left arm, he has armor. And that is just supposed to represent the fisherman. Apparently, that type loses a lot.
They're also considered the most effeminate, because they got a net and a lasso, and they apparently spend a lot of time running away from people.
But coolest imagery, and I think probably found its way into the most 19th century paintings or whatever.
Yeah. Moving on from his sports crime just to the general hedonism and perversion, right? This is what I really, really wanted in the movie. He had among his minions men called after their private parts of either sex, and on them he used to bestow his kisses with particular pleasure. He had, too, a man whose penis projected further than does that of animals. He called him onos, that's the Greek word for ass is in donkey, and was very fond of him. He even enriched him and appointed him to the priesthood of rural Hercules, right? This guy has got an entourage-style gang of sex guys. Here's my boys, balls, ass, cock, and clitoris.
Yeah, these are my boys, Balls, Ass, and Johnny Drama.
He is said often to have mixed human excrement with the most expensive foods and did not refrain from tasting it, making a fool of other people, as he thought. Or like this one. He displayed on a silver dish 2 misshapen hunchbacks covered with mustard, and straight away he gave them advancement and riches. Like, it's so good, it's so weird, it's so wacky. Like, that's part of why we love the Roman world so much, is we love it because it is alien to us. It is foreign to us. And I think you see that with the fucking blood sport gladiator show that we centered an entire film on. This is something that's hard for us to wrap our heads around, watching people fight to the death for entertainment. And so I just wanted a little bit more, is all I'm saying.
This has got to be where that story comes from, of him taking like all of the legless men in Rome and dressing them up like snakes and beating them to death.
Yes, exactly.
All these podcasts will mention that story as if it's true, as if this isn't coming from this like insane text.
Yeah. Such was his lack of propriety that he very often drank in public, sitting in the amphitheater or theater in women's clothing. I read that, I'd be like, let's be real, ancient Romans, aren't you all wearing dresses? Okay, last couple things. Miscellaneous, weird, and wacky stuff. We did the sex crimes, politics crimes, and sports crimes. Commodus, he had a sense of humor. He's a man of the people, right? In his jokes, too, he was destructive. For example, he put a starling on the head of a man who, he had seen, had some hairs that were going white among the black ones, like worms. The bird thought it was chasing worms and made the man's head fester with the striking of its beak. He was out here doing bird crimes. And the text says, in more examples of his jokes, he cut open a fat man in the middle of the stomach so that his innards suddenly poured out. This is one of Commodus's classic bits.
You know, the more I find out about this Commodus, the less I like him.
He used to name men one-footed or one-eyed when he had removed one of their eyes or snapped off one of their feet. He's out here giving nicknames after maiming people. Is all of this true? Most definitely not. But also, who cares? Could you imagine a world in which we lean into the wild and wacky nature of how the Romans viewed one of their own bad emperors? This movie is so sexless that the worst we get is the peck on the lips incest from Commodus, and, you know, orders Maximus to be killed is the only thing that we see him do.
Well, he kills his father.
Oh, and that. Yeah. And the killing of his father are the only, like, cruelties that we see. But I want to see Joaquin Phoenix in drag. I want to see Joaquin Phoenix blowing a guy. I want to see Joaquin Phoenix decapitate an ostrich and fight a giraffe. Give me a banquet scene in which Joaquin Phoenix literally eats shit and tells people they're missing out before he lifts the fucking silver plate to show the hunchbacks covered in mustard. Man, get weird with it. Get weird with it. So those are my closing thoughts. Is Gladiator B-. The Gladiator we could have gotten with a little bit more courage. Motherfucking A.
Sweet. Another great pedant's corner on one of our classical history movies.
I know. This is a vein that will be running dry very soon, my friend.
Yeah, we only got a few left of these.
Yeah. But that's all we got for you today. As always, thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, write us a comment, do all that engagement. It really helps the show out. And we will see you in 2 weeks for our next global financial crisis episode.
Oh, yes. Excellent. Well, we'll be returning to Italy.
It's true. Yeah. We're going to be back all Europe way. Actually, we're going to be visiting a lot of countries that were part of the Roman Empire. Portugal,
Greece,
Spain, Greece, Italy.
All right. Well, arrivederci.
Ciao, ciao.